light or
maybe
heat?
the lighting.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good.
Okay, all right. Is it going?
It's going.
Oh, I didn't realize. Okay, let's begin by having you tell us your name and your birthday and where you're from.
My maiden name?
Your whole name, yes.
My maiden name? Or my whole name, yeah?
Your whole name.
My name is Hana Kantor, born Hana Schanzer, Scancer, in a very small town in Poland, near the German border, Stemierzyce, where the coal mines are, in the coal mines area. And when the war broke out, I was born 1926, and I was very young, and I heard the aeroplanes coming, bombarding, and the first victims were the Jews. Right away, they killed Jews.
Okay.
And it was September the 1st. It was around Yom Kippur time, our Jewish New Year. And there was right away a shortage on food. We had to stay in line for bread. We had to get up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes we stood for hours until it came close and they showed that we are Jews. They threw us out from the line.
Let's back up a little bit. Could you tell us who was in your family? Tell us about your brothers or your sisters. Or two sisters?
We were 8 children.
8 children.
8 children.
And which child are you?
I am the 7th. And
what had your father been doing?
my
for a living?
father died in 1920, 30-something. I was very young when he died, but he used to be mostly a scholar.
What does that mean? Did he work at a university or teach?
No. He was taught the Torah. He was reading the Torah and very much into traditions, to religious things. With a beard. I have a picture here of him.
Oh, good. Yes, we'd like to see.
Coincidentally, I have a picture.
Okay, we're gonna.
Somebody gave me this picture.
How old was he when he died?
He was maybe 60-something. He died of cancer in his throat. This picture I got from somebody. There was a photographer in our town, and I had a stepbrother because there was 3 stepchildren before my family, and he went to the photographer and they had a proof of this picture, and he brought it, and that's how I got this picture.
You've brought several pictures. Are they of your family?
I have one picture here from a sister that also was killed in the war. This picture. She died in when they cleaned out our town. She died
What was your town like before the war and when you were
My
small?
town was a small town. It's a village. It was a village, but a big village. It has 2 train stations. One train, when somebody was going from Warsaw, from big city, Warsaw, capital city, and there was another capital city, for instance, Krakow, and they wanted to go from one city to the other, and they had to stop from this station, get off and walk to the other station and take the other train. So we had 2 stations, and we lived near the station. And there was shoemakers, dressmakers, people that had stores, groceries, clothing stores, material stores, all kind. That's from what we lived, from each other.
How did your parents earn a living?
My father used to be very wealthy, but then he died and everything went wrong. And my mother was left with children, with so many children.
How old was the oldest and how young was the youngest when your father died?
Well, my sister, my youngest sister and I, we were from the youngest. And then the other ones were older and older and older because there were 8 children. So I don't know exactly what age, but they were already older. One was married, and one was, 2 were married.
Oh, I see.
Others were working already when the war broke out, when my father died. I was just starting school or something like that.
See. So you were very young.
Yes.
Do you remember him?
Yes. I remember him very well. I remember one incident. He was very religious. He didn't permit to go to public school, but if I go to public school, I had to go to Hebrew school, to Beis Yaakov, they called it. Beis Yaakov. And there came a teacher to our small town, and she was teaching us. And so I had to go there. When I came home, I had to tell him all the stories about the Jewish Bible. All the stories, and I told him, and he was very happy. And I went to public school, but I didn't go to many classes because the war broke out, and so I only have 5 grades of public school.
Could you give us a feeling what your family life was like prior to the war? How things were for you?
It was very close, very close. We had to, our particular family had to support ourselves however we could, because we were left without a father, without anything. We had our home, our land we had, but everybody tried to work and to support. There wasn't many places to work because it was a small town. And whoever got out from the small town and went to a larger city, there were more chances. But we were such a tight family, close, that we stayed together. And we lived however we could. It wasn't a rich life. I was hungry many times. Matter of fact, all the time I was hungry. And, but we had a family life, we lived together. That was important. Somehow we would have survived and we would have lived continuously. We would have not died of hunger, because then everybody grew up and they were working and they had jobs and they had business, they had something. But somehow we managed to live. And we would have lived.
It must have been very difficult after your father died.
It was very difficult, but it was difficult. I was trying to do all kind of things to get to do. So I picked from the garden soup green, and I was going to the houses and I was selling them from one house to another. I sold radishes I grew in the garden. Sometimes we were killing, and kosher, for kosher we killed a calf. Calves we killed. We have calves, geese. So we went to town. We bought how many there were? 20, 50, 30. Those geese. We brought them to kosher slaughtering. We cleaned them. We sold them. So we had for ourselves food. Or when we killed a calf, we sold it. It was illegal because we didn't have a store. And then we had some bones from the calf. I think that's why I look so healthy, because I grew up on calf's bones. They say that it's very good, very healthy. So maybe that's why. Because we couldn't afford it to have the meat. The meat we had to sell. So life, we had our own house, we had a big garden. I worked in the garden, I planted things. We played outside, we ate outside. It's a different life.
Were there many Jews in your town?
Yeah.
And were they separate from the others, or Jews and non-Jews lived together?
Most Jews lived separate, but I happened to live mixed, because where we lived was mixed.
And what was the climate there?
The climate was...
I don't mean in terms of weather, I mean between the Jews and non-Jews.
In this particular town of ours, wasn't so bad. Wasn't so bad in our town.
When did you become aware that things were changing?
For instance, when the Germans came, we saw the change right away.
What did you see?
But there was curfew. We couldn't go when we wanted and what we did. For instance, my mother was put in jail because she went to the Gentiles. She bought eggs. Eggs like you measure by the dozen. 5 dozen has a certain name. And she had 5 dozen. And she brought them in, she was going to sell them. Then when she sold them, she had a couple of eggs for the family. So they arrested her, put her to jail because she had this. I was so young, and at the time, I made transactions that were a life and death at the time. But there were these Germans, they were really like Volksdeutsch. They were not 100% Germans. They were from Romania, these particular Germans. They were half German, half Romanian, I don't know, something like that. And they took over by us in town the places. There was a place where the nuns were. And the Poles, everybody had to bring the food there. So he was the big boss, he had all the food and everything. Somehow they lived not far from us. And I was familiar, and I started to do business. So I went someplace I knew who had something to sell, like a Persian rug. Brought it to him, he gave me corn, wheat in a sack. Then we gave this to grind on something, then we had flour, so we lived. But for this, we did all kind of things. We tried all kind of things because we lived where we lived. So we could do this easier. People were already in the ghetto, we weren't. But then we went to the ghetto.
And how old were you at this point when you went to the ghetto?
Altogether, how old was I? 1926? 30, about 15 years, 16 years. In the ghetto, before the ghetto they came, and in 1939 and 1940, I had one brother that was with the Polish army, and he was in Hungary. And he smuggled himself to come to Poland. He went on a wagon of hay inside, and they through the border from Hungary to Poland someplace, I don't know, I was too young, and he came home. And he wasn't even home for a long time. They made like a mobilization. They said that they should go from every house, they're just going to take one person. But they took, in that they're not going to take people that just came from the war. But they took this brother and they took another brother. And they took another brother. And they sent them to concentration camps. And then they came to the house and they wanted to get me. So in the middle of the night, they came, there were Jews who was like police, Jewish police. So they came with them, and I had to get dressed. They were going to take me. I was on the list. So I was getting dressed, and I was watching them while I was getting dressed. I don't know from where I knew this. I really don't know. And I was watching them and watching them and watching them and getting dressed and getting dressed. And
what was going through your mind when you were getting dressed?
And while I promised myself that they will never take me alive, because they took a child friend of mine, and for some reason they released him back, and he came home and he died. And another one committed suicide. So I promised myself that I will never go alive. So they came and for me, ready for me, and I was getting dressed slowly, and while I was getting dressed I was watching them, like I was watching, and the minute he turned his head, I ran. I ran through the back door, and I ran in the fields, and it was cold, because by us in Poland, like November, it was already frozen, the ground was frozen, and I ran without shoes, half dressed maybe, probably, because I was watching for a chance. And I was running and running and running, and I came one place, and I stood on the by a door. I stood, and I urinated. So from the urine I got warm, because I wasn't dressed, I was frozen. And in the meantime, all these lights were going, they were looking for me. The dogs were barking, and they were looking, and I was standing like this. Until when it got quiet, when everything quieted down, I don't know how long it took, I went home. They left, because they didn't get me. And the next day the transport went away, whoever they caught, the transport went away, and it was quiet again. And
where was your mother when this was happening?
She was there. She was there.
She was watching them wait for you?
Yes, she had no choice.
Mm.
They did worse things than that. They killed children in their mother's eyes. So she was there, and she was watching, she couldn't do nothing. And then there was incident that when they wanted to take a certain person, and when the person didn't come, they took the whole family, sent them to Auschwitz. So then when we were already in the ghetto, I was supposed to register that I am there, because they took the people, everybody had to sign the name going into that place. And I signed my name that I am there. So they couldn't do nothing to if they wanted they could, but I mean, they were kosher. My family was kosher because my name was signed that I went in. And then when I went in there was an outhouse. I went to that outhouse, I ran to that outhouse, and I did come back. I stayed there. And all of a sudden I see a boy who was also half German, half Volksdeutsch. And he was like my age. And he probably liked me. He was a neighbor. And I see him over there by that outhouse. I said to him, listen, if you help me, you watch if I can run. You tell me when to go out from here. When you watch me, when you let me, when you help me, I meet you later in the house. So he helped me. I ran away. I ran away very far away. And then when the transport went away and he came to the house, I told him, listen, you better stay away, because you know you are German. You're not supposed to mix with Jews. I tell the policeman that you were bothering me here. And that was it. He never bothered me again. And that's, I continued, I stayed home, and I went to work. We had a factory in hometown where they were making, one factory they had where they were making uniforms for the soldiers, and one factory they had where they were making barrels,
yes.
this kind of work. And I learned how to do electric welding. And each time they were saying, they're going to come, they're going to take us, they're going to take us, they're going to take us. So my mother was working. I got my mother the job because whoever was working was free, otherwise they would take him. It was like a life policy. If you have a job, they didn't send away. And my older sister had 2 children. And I was working that night, the night shift. There were 3 shifts. I was working at the night shift with my sister, with my younger sister Esther. And my mother and my sister, maybe one was working from 2 to 10, maybe from 10 to 6, something like that. They were home. And they were going around a rumor that they will get us. So people were trying to hide. And then we found out that they came. But
They came to your house?
not in the place where we worked. It was around and around was a gate, a big tall gate from cement. And they came and they were far away up. Where I was lower down, far away. And corn was growing, wheat was growing. It wasn't in May. It was already high. And people went to hide together. And for some reason I understood I shouldn't go together because maybe somebody would cough or something. So because of one, they will catch the whole group. So I was going to climb up on that high gate from cement, on that high wall, and I was going to jump down and run away. But I had my sister with me, and I knew I could make it because they were far away. Till they're going to come to that place, I'd be gone far away. But I was afraid I go up, and maybe she won't make it. So they come and they shoot her. So I decided not to go up at that wall. So they came, the soldiers, and one very well known over there, he was on the Himmler Knoll. He was a tall fellow. And they came with the rifles like this. And to me, at the time, I was working as a welder. My face was probably dirty from these materials. You know, like you see sometimes people working here like this. And I was thinking, you're not going to get me. Because I knew once they made this town Judenrein, that means clean up the Jews. They take the people from the ghetto, they take the people from work, and that's it, it's finished. So I was not afraid, and I didn't care if I live or not, so I was just going very, very proud with my head. I was going like this, like, doesn't bother me. You can kill me, it doesn't mean nothing.
How do you think you were able to have that attitude and sense of confidence?
That's how I felt. Exactly how I felt. I felt that I don't want to go to concentration camp because I knew I'm going to die there. So if he wants, he can kill me. I'm not afraid. They said to come out with the hand up.
Did you think he was going to kill you?
I didn't know if he's going to kill me, but I didn't care. I didn't know if he's going to kill me. But he could, if he wanted to, the way I looked at him, exactly what I felt. And for some reason, when we stayed in line, he picked me, he liked me. I don't know for what reason. And when we came into the ghetto, I don't wish on nobody in this world to see such a picture that I saw. We came in through the gates, and people that I saw last night, that were normal, they were taken out from the sleep. And they separate them from their children, and they separate them from their mothers and fathers, and they looked like plain, it was hysteria, it was the worst what can be. The people were not people anymore. They were just last night human beings. In a few hours, they weren't people anymore. And I also saw, and there were these wagons like this, a wagon, a car, big car, in flat. I don't know how you call it here. And on this, they had already people that they shot. They were lying dead bodies. They were bringing them somewhere. And from this side came people that from the ghettos, from the apartments, from the houses, from all over, they brought them. And here was the place of selection, to life and to death and to work.
What went through your mind when you saw that?
I saw that this was the end. I saw that this was the end. But I have to tell you, I remember when the war broke out, we never knew it was going to take so long. When we were saying, oh, if America would only come, if they would give us some bread, if they would bring some food, if they would free us, if America would only do this, we were so hungry, they would save our lives. We were hoping for America. And we were living with hope. Mm-hmm. Because who didn't have hope? At life was going out so tragically, people died very fast because they didn't have any hope.
Could you tell us what you saw that makes you say that people were people one night and not humans the next? What were they doing that made them no longer people?
They were very scared.
Yes, sure.
The hair was, they were destroyed, plain destroyed.
Are these the parents or the children?
The parents, the children, who knew who was who? There was a mixture. That was the place, the punkt, that was the place of judgment for your life or death. And when the people came, Himmler stayed with a little stick and he showed like this. There were lines. One was to Auschwitz, one was to work, one was maybe to men's work, one was to women's work, and there were children. They put in the children and the older people that weren't able to work, that I understood so. They were marked to go to Auschwitz. And every 20 minutes or every half an hour came a wagon and picked up the people because we lived not far away from Auschwitz. Maybe, I don't know how long, maybe an hour from Auschwitz I was by train.
Was your mother with you at this point, or were you with your sister?
No.
Just you and your little sister?
No. What happened was this. When we came there, we came from here and the other people came from there. And there we met. And my cousin came also from the ghetto. And she said, when I was, when we were taken to the ghetto from these soldiers, they said we can go home and get clothes. Because in the ghetto we didn't have where to run anymore. So I said, so a cousin came from the ghetto. She said to me, don't go home because your mother is probably hiding. If you go home, the soldiers will go with you and they will take your mother. Because we always thought maybe tomorrow the war will end. Mm-hmm. We were always living maybe later, maybe in a half an hour, maybe in a week, maybe tomorrow. So every minute was important. So since she told me I shouldn't go. So across there was a house where there was a lot of clothes. So this soldier, this big man, he told me, I don't know why he picked me. I don't know, because it was from a public place. It was nothing intimate or separate or something. I was with all the people and he picked me. And he said to me I should go inside and get whatever I want. So I went and I got some clothes. And the girls, the people around there said right away, Hanka, get me this, get me that, get me that. And I was just wondering, like people become animals right away, in such a time. And I found one shoe, and I didn't have the other shoes. I came out with one shoe. So he said to the policeman, the Jewish policeman, you go in and find that other shoe, otherwise I shoot you. I had no saying there. He went and he found the shoe. I was happy he found the shoe. He took out a fur coat and gave it to me. I should try it on if it fits me. And it was a beautiful May day. Wasn't thinking. I was just watching if my mother's coming. Because I had the feeling that I could save my mother. And if I wouldn't save her, I would go with her. That was my reaction. Mm-hmm. So I had that clothes and everything, and people were coming. And then I see my sister coming, my older sister. She had 2 children. But with her was another woman. That's why I tell you people become animals. This other woman had a child. My sister's children were hidden. You know, they had a place where the rabbits, they had rabbits. So in these little things where the rabbits are, my sister had children there. So when they came with that dog, a big German Shepherd. And she was crying so much. She wanted to go back for her children. They didn't understand what she's saying. They kept hitting her, and she should come. So she came crying. And this other woman had her child with her. So she took her child and gave it to my sister. Because when people didn't have children, they had a chance of sending to work. And they had children. So I, with my understanding, said to myself, why should she suffer for somebody else's child? You want to sacrifice for your own child, I understand. So I said to her, give her the child. It's not your child. Give her back her child. And they had sent her already to because she was crying so much. She was young, she was maybe 25 years old, but she was crying so much. So they sent her where it goes to Auschwitz. So I kept running to this German that gave me that coat and everything. He was a big man there. And the soldiers kept chasing me away. With the rifles, they kept chasing me away. And I kept running to him and I said, please, let my sister go. She is young. She's 25 years old. You can have a lot of use of her. She can still work. And please let her come with me. And all that, he didn't do it right away. And then I see he doesn't do it. And then I knew that any minute comes the truck and they're going to put her in and go to Auschwitz. So I went over to him and I said, listen, either you take her, you put her here or I go there. But who was I? He could take me there, he could take me whatever he wanted. But he gave me my sister. And how many people were there on that place? This was a miracle. I don't know what he saw in me, that he was to me like this. He picked me, and I got my sister. My younger sister was with me, and then I got this sister. And then they went and sent us all in concentration camp.
They did not send you to Auschwitz?
No, they sent us because I went with the working people.
Mm-hmm.
And so they sent away, we were, I think, 100 or 200 women from my town. And they sent us, it wasn't exactly a concentration camp, it was a working camp. Half were for women and half was for men. And we were working in a shoe factory.
Where was this?
That was in Otmut, Oberschlesien, Gogolin. The name, before the war, there was the name of the shoe factory, Bata. Then the name was Otta, O-T-A or T-T-A. And we worked in this factory, and then I received letters from my mother, and I received a package, because my mother hid out in that town. Then she went to a larger town, Sosnowiec, where there was the last exit. They were there for a few weeks, and then they finished them all from there. That was it. They still got the people from all over, from the neighborhood, and usually the people that went to camps, they went there, and from there they sent them to different camps. Us, they sent straight to that camp. And in that camp I was a year, maybe.
Now you were with your sisters?
I was with my sisters, and I knew that my 3 brothers were alive. I kept sending letters. My brothers, my 2 brothers were in concentration camp since 1940. My third brother must have gone in March 43 in camp, in concentration camp. My other brothers, they were helping themselves because they did some kind of work in the camp. They were, so they had some food, more food maybe, and they were sitting, and my third brother came to that camp, and he was sitting in that place where all the new camp, the people from the other camps came to this camp, and he was, somebody told me this story, and he was looking out the window, and he was all swollen, my third brother, because before they died they were swollen from the hunger, maybe the blood turned to water, I don't know. And he looked out the window, and he saw my brother there, which was in good condition, because he worked as some kind of a mechanic, and probably started knocking on the window and everything, and this brother found him, and they got out, and they kept giving him food and everything. They recuperate them. They recuperate him. Then they went from one camp to another, from one camp to another, and then they were marching. And I knew that was the reason, because they never wanted to separate. They wanted always to be together. And they didn't run away, I'm sure, because they were afraid of one runs away, they're going to punish the other.
I'm not following you. You said that one brother looked out of the window and saw your other brother,
yes,
and that then they
were two brothers
left
together. Two brothers were in a concentration camp. The third one was gone later, and they brought him to this camp. This brother was working as a mechanic in the camp, so he was walking around. And he was on the gate or something, and he saw the third one that came late, saw this brother in the camp. So he probably knocked on the window or something, and he came, and he took him out.
And that's the part I didn't understand. How did he take him out? He took him out of the camp?
Not out of the camp, out from that building or something.
I see. Okay.
And then he helped him out because he had food, and he helped him. So he survived.
within the camp,
Within
he helped.
the camp,
He helped him.
survived, and he gave him food, and so he got better. But they went, in the last days, the Germans just took the people and they walked that march. And they walked, and they went into a barn, and they went to sleep on the barn, and the Germans saw that the Russians or the Americans are coming, and they put gasoline or something, they burned the barn. So they died in that place, my three brothers. The 27th of April, somebody came when I was freed. Somebody told me that he saw them on the 27th of April. I was freed May the 8th. So when I was freed, I was 100% sure that my brothers are alive. And I was in this camp. I was sure my brothers were alive. So I had my two sisters with me. From my mother I had received a package. So I wasn't that, I was not that so bad like
Right,
others.
you weren't.
Because I had my two sisters with me. I knew my three brothers are in camp, they're alive, and I knew my mother's alive because she sent me a package. But unfortunately they killed her. And I was in that camp. We were working there, and then from there they took us to another camp. At Ludwigsdorf.
Before we go on to the other camp, could you back up, please, and tell us what went on in the first camp and what your life was like and what you did every day and what you saw?
In that camp, I was working, in this camp, I was lucky because they needed some people to work in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I volunteered, and I worked in the field.
Doing what?
Whatever needs to be done.
Planting?
Planting, things
I
like
see.
that. And I was very happy because I was in the fresh air. And I wasn't locked up, I was in the fresh air. And Sunday, they gave us, every day they gave us, when we came home, we had to stay in line. They gave us a little soup. They gave us the portion of bread for the next day. And seldom could we keep the bread till the next day. And one day, after we had the soup, there was a water, not a sink outside, and we had to wash that plate, what we ate. And I stayed and I was washing my plate, or I was going to wash my plate, and there was this German Judenälster, German capoeira, whatever she was, a healthy woman, all of a sudden, from nowhere. To this day, I am always jumping. Her hand got on my face, and for weeks I had her marks from her fingers on my face, for no reason. And Sunday, they gave us a whole potato, and they gave us a piece of meat, and they gave us a mustard sauce. That was so delicious, that mustard sauce, that I was dreaming only if I ever lived through, I should have a whole pot of potatoes and a whole bread to eat. Sunday, they made us sing. They made a stage, and they had entertainment. They were, the men were very, very fine, educated men. They were from Holland, former bankers, opera singers, very well educated, rich people, and very cultured people. And they were dying like the flies. Every few days you just saw they swell up and they die, they swell up and they die, because they were so delicate. They were never used to hard work. They were used, the Polish people didn't have such a good life. But these people had a very good life, and they weren't used to this kind of life. Nobody was used to this kind of life, but especially them.
They were more delicate than the Polish people.
They weren't hardened. A Polish Jew had always the hard way to find a piece of bread.
So you knew how to work.
Yes, and they knew how to work, but they didn't. Who knows how many maids they had and how elegant they lived and all that.
So you really found that those people from other countries didn't make it as easily.
They were from Belgium, and they were from Holland.
You were how old when you were in this first camp? What are you now, 15?
Yeah,
15.
Something like that.
Did you ever think that you wouldn't get out?
We were hoping that we will get out. One day in that camp, Sunday, we didn't go to work. So Sunday we could put on our clothes. So I had a dress, in Germany called a dirndl. Here I don't know how.
Dirndl.
A dirndl.
Yes.
It was a dress. Here it was tight together. Here it was loose, and here it had two organza sleeves, two white organza sleeves. And I had a good voice, so sometimes I had to go on the stage and to sing. Maybe that's why this German woman hit me, because there was this German man, by the man, a foreman or a cop or whatever, whatever his name was, his position, he was a big man over the whole camp. And she was his girlfriend. And he had a wife at home. But anyhow, maybe he looked at me or something, because she had, you know, because I had nice red cheeks, I was young, and she was older, and I don't know, he never told me anything, I never had anything to do with him, and nothing, but maybe for sheer jealousy, she must have hit me, because I was just standing in line, washing my plate, like anybody else. Also, they cut my hair.
Had you had very long hair?
I had hair, and what happened was that they had a shoemaker by the man over there, and there was this Jewish man who had the high position there, and he wanted me. He liked me. He had some other woman, but he wanted me because I looked good, and he wanted me to stay in concentration camp inside, not to go to work, because he wanted to give me a job inside, because he wanted me for himself. If I would stay, most people went away, he could do with me what he wanted. But I didn't want to. I wanted to work outside free. I wasn't interested because I promised myself like this. I came as a virgin. If I come out, I want to be a virgin. Or if I die, I want to be a virgin. I came like this, I want to go out like this. And not that there were too many opportunities, but I don't know if it was or if it wasn't. I don't know. I wasn't interested. But I went over to that camp to fix my shoes or something. We could go Sunday to the dentist and to the shoemaker there. And this Judenels there was so mad at me. He took me out on the appeal. You know what the appeal is? They take all the people, they count them, and cut my hair in front of all the people everybody should see. Cut my hair completely.
Down to the roots?
Down to the roots.
Oh my.
And
What was it like? What did it feel like when that happened?
in that time you don't care.
No?
It probably hurt me, but in that time, what difference does it make? Yes hair, no hair.
It's one more thing.
Yeah, doesn't matter. And one man sometimes gave me bread through the wire. Because between my camp and his camp was wire. And he was working in a place where there were people from all over, not only Jews. So he made, these people were free. So they brought bread and made some deals. I don't know what, maybe some people, the Holland gave diamonds in exchange for bread. So he gave me once in a while bread through the wires. And he asked me if I would run away with him. And I said I could not run away with him because I have my two sisters. Because he had already papers, everything was done, because he was coming in contact with the Irish people, not with the Jewish people, with the non-Jewish people. So he had money, he had papers, he had tickets, he had all the documents, everything that one needs to run away. And so I said, I cannot run away because I have my two sisters. If I run away, they're going to kill my sisters. So he ran away, and they catched him. So they took him around, showed everybody. They catched him, then sent him later to Auschwitz. And that camp wasn't so bad, but the next camp was much worse, because we were working by, they were making those bombs that you throw, grenades.
Grenades, hand grenades. Yes.
It looked like a piece of soap. And people worked by this. They took me to work by this. There were 15 Czechoslovakian girls who were free to go and come, working on a thing that, how you call it, that it goes, you have to pick up and work.
A conveyor belt.
A belt.
Yes.
I had to pick up these boxes, the heavy boxes, put it down, and distribute work for 15 Czechoslovakian woman. I had to do the work, to pick the heaviest work. Every piece had to go through my hands. They only had like 1/15 piece. I had to do for all of them. And in a few days, a German woman was going around to them twice a day and giving them vitamins straight in the mouth. God forbid they shouldn't touch because it was poison. So they gave them the vitamins straight in their mouth. Me, they didn't give anything. And I felt that I couldn't walk anymore. I was very weak. So I don't know how I met this man, a German. They were doing welding work. There was a shop where they were doing things for the factory. They had to do fixed things. There was a factory there. And there was a camp. Next was a camp. That was the next camp where I went. That was when I came to the next camp.
Why did they change you?
They cleared that camp and they sent us farther.
I see.
We came to that camp, it was Ludwigsdorf. And there were men there. They sent away the men. And I went and I saw that men were working and men left. So I saw that they were working this kind of welding that I knew how. I went over to the man and I say, he can use somebody for this kind of work. And he said yes. And I started to work, and I also gave another girl work like this. So I was working over there. I didn't work that hard.
Mm-hmm.
I was working sometimes at the night shifts. If anything broke, they brought it in to fix. So I fixed it. If nothing broke, they didn't bring nothing to fix it. And in the daytime also, I was by myself in a room, and I had this mask, and I was working. So I would have not lived anymore, then I wouldn't change my job. I wouldn't be able to survive.
You think you wouldn't have?
No, I was already on the way to go. I couldn't pick my feet up. So we were working there, and then it was coming closer and closer to the war end. Over there were also women from different concentration camps that came. And we were there when it came time, when it came closer to the liberation, the Russians were coming, whatever it was, they didn't have any more the standard things, the work, to go to work and all that. There was no work, there was nothing, it was a mix-up.
Mm-hmm.
So they took us out to all kind of work. I remember I was working outside in the street. I was making holes for the tanks, something. And I think it was April. And I heard they were talking that Roosevelt died. And then we thought we lost our hope completely.
Uh-huh.
And when I was going someplace to work, there was a place where they had beads, rotten beads in the ground.
Beads?
Beads, they had beads, but to eat beads.
Oh,
the kitchen
beans,
or
okay.
someplace, I don't know, no, in the factory someplace. And these beads were rotten, sour, dirty, rotten like rotten. So we went there and we stole these beads. And we ate those beads. And I took home some for my sisters. And I don't remember how it was that I met this German girl, and her father was a communist. He was against the Germans. And he was working in a factory where they were making vitamins. And she brought me, you call it Traubensugar, that was from the grapes, the sugar. That was maybe vitamin C, I don't know what it was. And she brought me in a bag it was like white powder.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept eating it like this. I couldn't bring it through the camp because they were searching me. They would have taken away. So I kept eating this. And as I was eating this, I felt like from day to day I became like, you put iron on me, steel. All of a sudden I became strong and I started to work. And I could work. I could pick up the shovel. I could do so many things because it must have been vitamin C. And I just kept eating this. She brought me bags of it and I ate. And this helps me to survive. And then, because these were the days where we didn't get food, where we didn't work, where we didn't get anything. And I still have a friend here, Betty, who was in camp with me. She reminds me of this. We used to walk, and we had probably a German man or a woman watching us. And I went to speak to a woman by her house, and I said to Betty, listen, you talk to her, and I go in the back, and I was stealing the food that she had for the dog. So she reminds me today that I said to her, you stay and talk to her so I can steal the food. So I went in the back and I stole the dog's food.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I survived.
You sound like you were very able to stay focused on each minute.
Yes, I look back at myself, and I have sometimes a chance. I look back and I'm thinking that I wasn't just an ordinary, that I had my intelligence, I don't know what happened, because I always found a way, because if I wouldn't find that way, I wouldn't be here. I always found a way, and in this way I was able to help my sisters too, because if I had when I was working in that place, I forgot to tell you, when I was working as a welder, in the daytime people came in to work. So there came in a Russian guy, and I spoke to him, and he brought me kielbasa, Polish salami, and he brought me bread, and I took from people like a dress, shoe, whatever, I brought to him and he gave me that. So when I made a deal, I got a piece of kielbasa, I gave the people half, and half I took for me. And then this half I shared with my sisters. So always I was able to do something. I wasn't just sitting there, I'm standing working, I did something. And I really give a lot of credit to myself. Because the way I ran away, the way I ran away the second time, the way I came and I said that they shouldn't punish my family, I was there, but I did run away. I was registered that I am there, but I wasn't there because I ran away.
How do you account for your passion to survive?
What do you mean?
Well, there must have been some part of you that
wanted to survive.
Had to survive.
Yes, I account to it because we all wanted to survive. Most of these women survived that I was with.
But many people didn't possess that.
I wasn't in this kind of concentration camp. They were going to send us. They were going to send us, and the last minute later they found that they had already prepared for us bread that was poisoned. They didn't make it. It was too late for them. They had everything prepared for us that we should die. But the Russians freed us before. If it would take maybe 2-3 days,
they would have killed you?
They would have killed us.
Poisoned you?
Yeah, they had the food was ready for us, poisoned food. And when I was freed, when we got up in the morning, we saw that nobody was there. So I didn't wait till anybody was going to open a gate. Under the gate was maybe that much from the wires underneath. I went through that, and I went to this German that when we were in concentration camp, he used to throw us some bread. When I was working outside, he was throwing some bread, and he had a grocery. So when I knew where he lives. So the first thing I did is pushed myself through. I went there. They gave me some food. His wife gave me some bread, and it hurt me so much I couldn't swallow because my intestines were already fried. So I had enough understanding to chew everything very well. It should be able to pass.
Mm-hmm.
And every day in the radio we were hearing that in Theresienstadt, Czechoslovakia, where was a big concentration camp, every day thousands and thousands of people were dying after we were freed already. Because the American soldiers came, and they gave them chocolate, and they gave them good food, and they started to eat, and
their bodies couldn't.
couldn't, because they should have been taken and given probably intravenously the food or somehow,
Right.
so they would be able to swallow and to survive. So after the war, a lot of people died because I can tell because my intestines hurted me so much I couldn't swallow anything.
What's your most vivid memory from your experience in the camps?
One Sunday afternoon, when I was in that first concentration camp, it was a beautiful day. I was looking outside and I saw the Germans going to church or from church. They were going free, the children there. It was a small town, probably. And I looked and I said, what did I do? Why am I here locked up? Why am I here locked up? These people are free. What did I do? I didn't do anything. And I said to myself, you didn't do anything, you are a Jew. And that's why you're here. And when I was free, and I came to the United States, I didn't live in a good neighborhood. I had problems to have a good apartment. I was freed, and I met my husband, and we married. 1945. I was 19 years old.
And you met your husband?
I met my husband
Here or there?
At that time, most of the people were marrying each other because nobody had anybody. Nobody had relatives. I was fortunate I had two sisters. But that was the side. They came, we met each other, and we married. So I met my husband, and we married. My sisters went away already with their husbands to the German zone, and I was still there. But I was free in a concentration camp, but I had an apartment there. It was in the mountains. It was, and then, when I was pregnant, I saw that I must go, because if I don't go when I am pregnant, I won't be able to leave. I was under the Russian and under the Poles. And the Polish, there was an organization, AK, who were very anti-Semitic. And they were killing the Jews however they could. My husband, I was pregnant with my daughter, and my husband went to his hometown, Kielce. I went with him. And we were there in Kielce, and we were in a committee, like all together. There were beds, a lot of beds. We stayed all together. Whoever came there, all the Jews that came there. And I met this girl. This you must take a picture, because there's nobody that knows what happened to her. I'm the only one who knows, and I want this should be seen, because it's very tragic. I don't know where I have them here. This little girl, her name is Rachelcha, was Rachelcha. She came to concentration camp, maybe she was 12 years old. Her father was the rabbi in our town. We were all trying that she should be alive, that she should survive. We were all trying very hard. And she survived. Well, after the war ended, people went to different directions, different places, wherever and how they could do it. When I came to Kielce with my husband in 1946, she was in a kibbutz in Kielce. and she was with a whole group, and she was going to leave to Israel. I was in Kielce, that was Thursday. She gave me this picture, and she wrote down in Polish, "Forever and ever, you dearest friend, Rachelcia." I went home from Kielce, and the train going from Kielce, between Kielce and Częstochowa, I was living still in Ludwigsdorf. And the train, I never looked Jewish, but my husband looks Jewish. Also, I speak a good Polish. My husband did not. I heard the anti-Semitic words from the Poles in the train. So I was shivering. I knew the minute they found out that we are Jewish, they're going to throw us out with the train, with the going train. So I didn't
to kill
say,
you.
To kill me. So I didn't say nothing to my husband. My husband didn't say nothing to me. And we came home. That was Thursday. And Monday morning, I was pregnant with my daughter, Eva. I was listening to the radio, and they said there was a pogrom in Kielce, and they killed 42 Jews, Polish army Polacks. I thought I didn't hear right. So I heard over and over and over again that that was true. So this little girl was killed July the 4th, 1946, after the war. Her name was Rachelcia Zandberg. Her father was the rabbi from our town. When I was pregnant, when I saw what goes on, we wanted to run away to the American zone. And I was pregnant. And I had a kidney infection, not the kidney, but the cover from the kidney. I was infected. And I saw that when we're not going to run away, we're going to be stuck for the winter. And then I have a baby. Eva was due in January. I'm going to have the baby, and then I won't be able to go. Because I had to smuggle myself. I couldn't go legally. I had to go through horrible connections, the horrible ways, matter of life and death, to be able to pass the border. So we decided it was maybe after Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, it was maybe October or something like that. My husband and I, we took our belongings and we went in the night. And we had to go to Czechoslovakia.
How did you travel?
We had to go to Austria. I don't know how I went. I came to Austria. We probably paid somebody. We went. We came to Austria, and there was the Bricha, Israeli organization, an illegal organization. And they were helping the people to go from Austria to the American zone. But we had a long wait. Since I was in my 8th month, I couldn't wait too long. So I was in a camp, in a lager, Durchgangslager.
Transit camp.
Yeah, that you wait there until you go, whatever. So at that time, there were barracks, and it was very cold. And children were dying. And I am in my 8th month, and there was cold there, and people broke their furniture in order to warm up, and if they broke the furniture, they arrested them. I think it was the English zone. Anyhow, I went to Vienna. That was Linz. I went to Vienna, and I was over there in Vienna, where the older people were there. And I went with my husband. We paid somebody money to go, so that we would have to pass the Donau. Donau is a river. I don't know how you say it in English. The Ilz, the Donau, it's a big water. It's a border water. And my husband went, and we went, and he was gonna, the men that took the people, they went ahead, and he was gonna come back and take us. And in the night time, we were in a place that we never were before. I only could see the water and the woods and the sky. That's all. I didn't know where I was. My husband, I don't know how to swim. My husband took me on his, with me on his back. He took me like this, and he was going to take me over, and then he was going to come to take my belongings, whatever. And as he took me, I felt that I cannot, because I was pregnant. I couldn't do it, so I stopped. So he was going to go and take our luggage there and then come back. But I heard in the water, the people, I thought they are grounding, the people that went in for ahead of us. So I kept yelling to my husband, come back, work with your hand, work with your feet, work, and come back. So he came back, and then on our own, we started. I lost my pocketbook that time there, because I wore a pair of high boots, so my husband and I would started to walk. The only way, we could have walked into the Russians again, be arrested. We didn't know where we were walking, but my husband has very good sense of direction. And he said when we went this way, how you call it at night, the sun? The sun at night, how you call it? The moon.
Yeah.
He said the moon went in this direction. So that means when we go back, we have to go in that direction, according to the moon. So we walked and walked and walked and walked. We didn't know where we were walking, that I got blistered on my feet. And it was already like the morning, early morning. We came to a road, where it was, where the cars were going and everything. We stopped the car, and they took us back to that place from where we came. And there, we saw that we cannot go like this anymore. We have to see that they should take us. And there were people ahead of us. And I didn't look pregnant.
Really?
Because I didn't have enough food. I didn't gain weight. I was pregnant. I was probably pregnant, you know. I mean, I had enough to, a baby was inside. So I took 2 hats for my husband. He had those hats. I put them underneath my coat, and I showed them that I am pregnant, that they should take me. So they took us in a truck, a whole group of people. And they told us not to say a word.
Who is they?
The Brcha, the organization. They said not to say a word, nobody can say nothing, because it must be quiet. We have to cross the border. So I was sitting like this, no chair, no nothing. And I thought that my baby's going to come up any minute from my inside. It was so hard to sit like this on my, I didn't have where to sit down. And we went there, we didn't know where we went. As we came out, we saw that we were from where we started out. So, because the light wasn't green, so we couldn't go. But I don't remember how we went the next time. And I came to Germany, to the American zone, Passau. This is in Bavaria. And my sisters were living there. And there we got a room. And I gave birth to Eva. I didn't have a diaper. I didn't have a carriage. I lived in a very cold room. I didn't have what to bathe her.
How did you?
And I had an operation on my arm. Had pus here. But we had a little oven, so every morning my husband lit that oven. I couldn't work. I had hair pus. I couldn't do nothing. And he made Verum heat up the little oven, and we had from tin a little thing from the German woman that was black, and in this I was bathing Eva every day. But one thing I had was a lot of milk. And I had a lot of milk, and she was drinking, and she was, from day to day, she was bigger and bigger and heavier and prettier. And somehow we had these packages from America, that they came from the joint organization. And later, when the spring came, I started trading, like give them, the Germans a can of coffee, so I got some diapers, I got a carriage, an old one. I kept trading, and then later I could already go out. What I did, I ripped up the sheets and I made diapers.
Yes. Did you have any clothes for the baby? Anything to keep her warm?
I don't know how I had, I don't know. I know that I ripped up the sheets for diapers. Then I boiled the diapers in a pot to be clean. And there was not much luxury. I lived in one room. And later, as I'd be able to go down, I started to have more things. And then there came a registration that we can register ourselves to go to the United States. So we registered ourselves. We were going to go to Canada. We had relatives in Canada. My husband had an uncle. So each time they took us, they were very anti-Semitic over there to Canada. They found something else. They said, I have tuberculosis. They said all kind of things in order not to let us go to Canada. In the meantime, I had liquidated. Later on, I had already furniture. I gave it to my sister. She went to Israel. She went to Israel. I was going to go to Canada. And turned out I was still in Germany. And I didn't go. And each time, by that time, I had another child. His name is Isaac. By that time, we were already in better conditions. We became acquainted. My husband made some business.
And how old is Eva? How much time has gone by now?
From Eva?
Yes. What's the age difference?
Between the two children?
Yes.
Eva was 23 months.
When you had Isaac?
When I had Isaac. In that time in Germany was already better. Because we lived on better conditions later on. We had a larger apartment. We had 2 rooms, and I had a maid. That was very cheap. If you sell 1 can of coffee, you could have a maid and rent, everything. Everything for 1 can of coffee if we got from the United States. You could have everything. So then times were better already. And we came to the United States. We registered ourselves. And in 6 weeks, we were going to go to Canada. I lost so much health and everything, and my husband disappointed so many times because they didn't let us in. And all of a sudden there was in New York, a big man here, his name was Seller. He was a congressman or something, and he made the papers that the people should be able to come, DP people, the DP people, displaced persons. And so we came to the United States in 6 weeks. I was very sick. I came on a ship, on a military ship, General Sturgis. I was very sick on the ship for 15 days. I was
sick?
Very,
you mean seasick?
Seasick, very, very sick. And Isaac has measles, and Eva was sick. They took my children to the hospital over there, and I was very, very, very sick. And I came to Boston, and I needed like something salty because I was, for 2 weeks, for 15 days, I was very sick. So I remember the Red Cross gave me donuts, donuts with coffee. And I said, oh, if I could only have a piece of herring. Because I didn't need nothing sweet. I needed something salty. Anyhow, and then from Boston, we came on a train to New York.
And Isaac is now, he's still an infant. You're traveling with a 2-year-old and an infant.
Isaac is an infant, and I am so weak that I cannot hold Isaac. Each time I have Isaac in my hand, he falls out on the train, on that concrete. 2 or 3 times.
Did you have enough milk
because,
for him?
No, he was drinking. I was almost a year. Isaac was almost a year, but I was still nursing him.
Yes.
And when we came to New York, there were relatives for some people that came. mostly the people had no children or one child. Very few people had two children. Since we had two children, we needed special accommodation. So they needed more room and more bathrooms and more this. So we waited a whole day over there, wherever it was, until it got dark, until they found a place for us. I looked and looked and looked if I see some relative, if I see somebody. It is a horrible feeling when you come in a strange place, in a strange land, and you don't see nobody that you know, and you are helpless. It's very bad. From then on, whenever I heard of anybody comes to a new place or something, I always went to help. I didn't want them to have the feeling what I had.
What was the feeling?
The feeling was that, we have nobody, that we are alone in a new country, in a new place, and alone.
Must have been very frightening.
Very frightening. Yes. The only thing was that the organization took care of us. And we came, they gave us a very nice 2 rooms in Hotel Nemerson, that was at that time. It is on 72nd Street or 75th Street between Columbus and Amsterdam or Broadway, one of those places. As I came in, I just didn't know what to say. It was a beautiful lit room, tremendous big 2 rooms with so many couches and so many beds and so many everything. It was light, it was beautiful. And then we had to get, my husband had to find a job and we had to find an apartment. So they gave us a very bad section, an apartment. I changed it for a very bad section. And then I was thinking I go to work, so my sister and I, we can take care of each children. So I lived in the same building. My other sister went to Israel.
What about the sister whose children stayed in the rabbit hutch? What happened to them?
They didn't survive.
I see, okay.
Because my mother was with them.
I see, and is that when they killed your mother?
Yes, later on.
I see, okay.
But we were hoping for every minute that we knew she had them.
So your 2 sisters survived.
Yeah.
One went to Israel.
Yeah.
And
now she's in the United States.
And the other one?
She went to America. And I gave birth to another child. So I couldn't go to work because I had 3 children. And it was very hard, very hard. My husband didn't make much money.
What did he find work to do?
My husband found work. I lived in Brooklyn. He found work in Washington Heights for 75 cents an hour. And he had to travel 3 hours to get to and from work. And it was very hard for me because the children were sick, 3 children, and I didn't live in a good neighborhood, and I didn't have enough money. I had to take on credit because the money that my husband brought home went to the doctor. When one child got sick, they all got sick. And the doctor used to come twice a week to my house. I lived in an apartment, in a 2-family house on the ground floor. The boiler was, I lived on top of the boiler, and it was too hot. When we opened the windows or the doors, the draft came, and all the children got croups and terrible, terrible. So then my sister found some kind of business in Harlem for my husband. First I found a job for my husband in the neighborhood to make steps. So I figured the 3 hours that he has to travel, maybe he can give me a hand or something. So he worked more than the other people because the other people were in the union. And they had like maybe $4.50 an hour. My husband worked for $1.50. And he made a double portion of steps than they made. When he wanted a raise, he didn't want to give him. And so anyhow, my husband started the business in Harlem. Whoever heard Harlem, you know, but we had no choice. So he started in Harlem.
What was his business?
Clothing. We started little by little. And then my sister had moved in the meantime in Washington Heights. So I wanted to live near her so we can help each other, give a hand. So we moved to Washington Heights. At the time already I was a princess, I was a queen, because my husband was already making money, I had a larger apartment, I lived in a better neighborhood. And then I got pregnant again. And just at the time when my Iba was graduating from 6th grade in public school, that's when this child is supposed to be born. So she went to that school, and my 2 boys went to that school, and the whole neighborhood knew that I'm pregnant and I'm going to get birth. From all the children, everybody knew that I'm going to give birth. And just like this, he went 3 weeks late. I went 3 weeks late with my youngest son. And in the meantime, I was expecting, you know, when you get pregnant in your 9th month, you think every day you're going to have the baby. Days passed, and another 3 weeks. So my daughter was graduating from public school, from 6th grade. So I gave her a haircut and a new dress. And as she was going back to school, after lunch, I think, I know that I was going with her, and I wasn't walking. No, I think some angels carried me. I was like flying. I had such a sensation. The happiness was so tremendous for me that it's indescribable. I was just flying with her, like just flying with her. And every step that she made, and I went into the school, and I was there for the graduation. And a couple of children carried the flag, and they were going and they pledged a legend. I was sitting in one of the left seats. I came out with a terrible, terrible cry, an attack of tears, like an ocean. It came and I couldn't stop it. I wanted to stop because I didn't want to interrupt the ceremony. It's such an important ceremony. I couldn't stop from nothing in the world. And I was just thinking, if someone would come over and ask me, why are you crying? And I wouldn't know what to say. They wouldn't understand. But I know why I was crying. I saw that beautiful day in camp when I saw myself in this concentration camp locked in, and I saw all the people free, and I never imagined that I'd be free and that I will have a child born in the United States and pledge the allegiance and be free and graduate, and 2 more children's school, and my 4th one is supposed to be born any minute. So my happiness came in those tears. I couldn't stop crying, and this was for happiness, and I was so happy for that. Then life was much easier. Somehow we survived and we lived normal, and we lived. We tried ourselves we live in comfortable. I have 4 children. I have 1 daughter and 3 sons. And my youngest son by now is a father of 2 children. The 3rd was on the way. I have 10 grandchildren.
10 grandchildren?
Yeah, beautiful ones. And all we need now is good health. That we should be able to enjoy the life that we have. It should be peace. There shouldn't be no more anti-Semitic attacks. That is, I went to Washington when it was the gathering from the Jewish survivors. And Maya Katz had a beautiful speech over there. And I'm trying to live day by day, one day at a time. And I'm trying to live for the future, because the past is not going to come back. And I'm very happy that I have a family, because it means an awful lot for people like us. They bring our happiness, our life. They keep us alive. And I happen to be very lucky that thank God I have children. Some of the people cannot have children because they were made not to have children. So we are fortunate in that respect.
Have you been back to Europe?
I was back right away. I was back that time when I was in Kantor. I was back in my hometown. And I came and I looked around. And it was a terrible feeling. I got sick. I got very sick.
What happened?
I looked at the places where my aunt lived, where my uncle, where my cousin, where my mother, where everybody lived. It was empty. It was terrible. I went into my Polish neighbors, and I saw that nothing moved. The table stays in the same place, the chair, the bed, the kitchen, the oven, like nothing happened. By them, everything is just normal. And I said to myself, what's going on here? Am I crazy or something? What's going on? It looks just exactly the way it looked when I left. And in the meantime, such a horrible thing happened to us. I just couldn't understand if I am crazy or if I'm. I couldn't figure it out, because I see such a normal life there, in their house, in the apartment, wherever it was. It was just the way I left it, because we used to go in often, and that wasn't a good feeling. I never want to go back, because it's a terrible feeling. I don't wish it on nobody.
Did you see the people? Did they talk to you?
I saw the people.
Say anything?
They were very friendly to me. Mm-hmm. And I saw them. And I got sick.
What do you mean you got sick?
I got sick. I got sick. I got sick. I don't know. I got temperature. I don't know. I got sick. It was very hard. It was very. I wouldn't advise nobody to go. It was very hard, because maybe when people go today, they already ripped up the places, they fixed it, they made over, they made different roads, different houses, different things. Maybe it's not that hard. But when I went, it was terrible. There's nothing to go for. It's not.
You have a very moving story to tell.
Everybody from us, when you want to survive, when you are in a place, when you are committed to death, in everything, when you survive, they didn't keep us to be alive. They wanted us to die. My husband has worse stories.
How do you think discovering yourself as a survivor influenced the way you lived through the rest of your life until now? And did it affect the way you parented your children?
My children?
Yes.
As I parented as a parent?
And you as a mother who had had these experiences and came out of them knowing that you're a survivor, I'm wondering how that affected your mothering of your children, if you've thought of that or talked about it at all.
Well, I didn't want to talk to them about it.
No.
No, I didn't want to talk to them about it. I never, not me, not my husband. But then when it came out, when they got older, and when it came out that we should tell them, so we told them once in a while. I also have a diary. I write I have already a lot of books that I wrote. And I write, and I make sure sometimes that I write something. But I don't know if I knew how to type, I would type it. Because I don't know if anybody ever going to read. In the meantime, it relieves me. Because in the morning, sometimes I wake up early, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and I feel, so I take and I write. I write whatever maybe you call it a journal.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps me. I feel like I would talk to a psychiatrist or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I share it with somebody. I lay there and I feel relieved.
And what you find yourself writing about is about what happened during the war, or about present kinds of things?
I usually write, you see, when I was in concentration camp, the last thing before we went to the last stop, I mean, when they took us from the ghetto to concentration camp, I wrote the whole thing. The whole thing I wrote so directly. I have a talent of writing, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And even today, I'd rather write than do anything else. I only have 5 grades of public school. When I wrote it so directly that every night we had to be at certain hour, the curfew. We were 70 women in a bed, and we had those double beds. And I was reading for them, they were crying, and they fell asleep. But one day they made an appeal and they said, when I was in concentration camp, if they find a pencil, a pen, or paper by anybody, go straight to Auschwitz. So I liquidated. Then I always wanted to write, but raising 4 children, I didn't have the chance. When I sent my little one to kindergarten or something, I don't know, I know it was the World's Fair here. And I went on 42nd Street or 34th Street, and I saw outside things from the World's Fair to sell because it was over already. And I saw a diary, a little diary, and I bought it, and I started to write. Then I stopped for years. Then I wrote again. I write. I am wondering how I write, how anybody can read, because in English you have to know how to spell. But for some reason I write. I write, and I am not such a bad speller. You can read it. And I raised my children. I gave my whole life to my children. I didn't know anything else. Nothing else but my children. And my husband worked very hard. He went out when it was dark and came home when it was dark. And I think I made a mistake because I always made sure that by 7:30 the children are in bed, because I knew when he comes home, they're going to start to jump around. They're never going to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And he always wanted to see the children, to wake them up or something, and I didn't let him because I was so tired. And I didn't want them to wake them up. It's going to be a gas. So we only saw the children on Sunday. I mean, he only saw the children on Sunday. Yes. So Sunday, I take all the children to the bedroom. And we had a nice breakfast. And I made a talent show. That every child should do something, sing or dance or something, whoever has the talent. And I always was dreaming of having a house and like a instrument, a musical instrument, a piano or something, and the children should have, but I never had a chance because I didn't have a chance to have a house. I bought a house, but my daughter was already married and the boys were in college, but still, I'm glad I have the house. I live here for about 23 years. And thank God I have a good relation with my children, with my daughter-in-laws.
Yes.
Of course, a lady once told me that she has the only son, and she's very good to her daughter-in-law, and all there. The daughter-in-law should be good to her husband, which is her son, so she has to be good to her daughter-in-law. So I never interfere. Whatever they do, I don't interfere because let them live their life as long as they're doing right.
Do they know your story?
Yes, they know. Thank God I'm healthy
Yes.
and I drive,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have to do anything for me. They're proud of my husband, they're proud of me. They like to introduce me always to their friends, and their friends know me. My daughter, I cannot be too much in touch because she's working and she has so little time. But my daughter-in-laws are not working.
Oh, I see.
They just raise the family.
Uh-huh. And they're all nearby? Are they nearby?
Now they're not. They
Oh.
used to live close by. Now they live, two of my children live in New Jersey, South Jersey,
Mm.
and one son lives in Staten Island.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a place in Florida that they come to me in Florida to stay, to spend vacation. I have a place in the Catskills, so they come. We see each other.
Are there any things that you would like to include on the tape? Any aspects that we didn't cover the first time around that you would want to include?
Maybe you ask me something.
Well, I'm just wondering if there were specific things. Maybe we could look at some of the pictures that you have.
I had one little question about what you've talked about when you were in the ghetto. You said that Himmler did the selection of who was going to the camp and who was going to labor.
Yeah.
How did you know that that was who it was?
We knew him.
You knew him.
We knew him because he was going around with a dog. We knew him. He is very known in the history from the,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
And you knew then that that's who it was.
yeah,
Uh,
we knew. Well, you have more experience. Maybe you ask me something. This was a picture right after the war. This is myself, my niece, my two sisters.
And your two sisters,
Yeah,
one who went to Israel,
yeah. But,
married and had
yeah.
more children?
She has two
Two
children.
children.
But
And the
she came-
children who, the sister who lost her children, did she have more children?
Yes, she had two children.
Do they know?
Yeah.
They know about the other
Yes.
children?
This is a picture when Eva was a baby in Germany, in Passau.
Mm.
This is a picture when I was pregnant with Eva. The last days in Passau, I must have been my 8th month.
You were so young. How old were you there, Nancy?
20?
Yeah.
that's your husband with you in that picture?
Yeah. This is my husband and I before we were going to come to the United States. This is my sister that lost her two children. She, her husband, and her child, and mine.
Those are the two children that were lost?
No,
there
no,
are three
no.
children, wait.
How many
Oh, no,
children
this is later.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my daughter. This is her daughter. The only difference is 3 days.
Uh-huh.
My daughter was born January 15, she is 18, and this is my son Isaac.
I see.
That's my daughter Eva Blanche, my sister Laia, her husband Herman, my husband Anshel, and my son Isaac, and I.
Mm.
That was a picture after the war. That was a picture from Eva, my daughter Eva, my sister's little girl that she gave birth also in Passau, who was 3 days older than my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That is my husband and I and Eva in Passau. This is a picture in Ludwigsdorf after the war. A group of our friends in the snow.
Playing accordions?
Playing accordion.
Are your children bilingual?
If they speak other languages?
Polish. Did you speak Polish?
No, I
to
never
them?
wanted them to speak Polish. I never spoke Polish. After the ghetto, after the pogrom, I never. This is me in Passau. this is my husband and his only brother who survived in the partisans, and my daughter Eva. And this is my husband and I in Passau by the Donau, by that water that I said we had to cross. And this, I was pregnant already with Isaac. And this is when Eva was an infant, when I had in that apartment, when I was so poor, without any accommodation.
Did you have a midwife help you with the birth?
Yeah, I had a doctor.
Oh, you had a doctor.
And this is right after the war in Poland, in Ludwigsdorf. I always had these high cheekbones. In concentration camp, and sometimes they had a little soup left. So the people stood in line, and they gave a little. They called it Nachschlag, whatever left over. When it came to me, they didn't want to give me my high cheekbones and small eyes. I had the same food as anybody else. At that time, I didn't have any help from nowhere. They thought I looked too good, I don't need food. And they gave me the hardest work also, because of my high cheekbones.
But that stood you in good stead, didn't it? That was lucky for you, that you looked so healthy and that you could work.
Yeah, and also I always had that disposition, a happy disposition, because even till now I have this disposition. If I don't smile, people ask me what's wrong, you know? My husband is better natured than I am, I think, but he is more serious. So they would think that he is the bad guy and I'm the good guy, because I always have a smile. I'm not bad, but I don't know. I'm just normal, I guess. And there are many things, but I try to think of the future because I cannot bring back nothing. All I can do is getting hurt.
If
I dwell too much.
Yes.
And I don't want to get hurt. I don't know how much I have left because it's the twilight of our life. And I like to enjoy life. And let's hope we're going to be healthy and have nachas. And that's what we are looking for. And it's very important the people should come forward because we're getting those checks from Germany, Wiedergutmachung. And I know the Germans, a lot of people died already. They have a ball. They don't have to pay so much anymore like they used to.
Well, okay. Thank you very much.
I thought you would be asking me some questions. I kept just talking.
You did beautifully.
Thank you.
You.